Episode 66 of the Pilot Podcast takes off now.
My name is Alex Abad. I'm out of Manhattan Beach, California, and I'm currently flying a G4.
What is going on, AV Nation, and welcome back to the Pilot Podcast. My name is Justin, and I am your host. Today, I'm talking with Alex Abad, who is quite possibly the coolest pilot on Instagram. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but it's just not even close. He is doing some amazing things in the G4, flying some awesome people, going out surfing, riding dirt bikes. He has a Ford Raptor. He just does some really cool stuff. And AV Nation, I was really honored to be able to tell his story. His story was amazing, and he just has some great insight. He has some great perspective on how the unique way that he was able to build his hours and how he used to work for Red Bull. Then he realized, hey, I want to be a pilot, quit Red Bull, which no one quits Red Bull, and then becomes a pilot and goes down this crazy road and now is flying the airplane and has the job of his dreams. Aviation, if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review on iTunes. You can check out our Instagram at Pilot the Pilot and check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/Pilot the Pilot. Aviation, without any further ado, here's Alex Abad. Alex, what's going on? Thanks for coming on the Pilot podcast.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
Dude, we have been trying to set this up for so long.
It's been over a year, and I definitely canceled one, so it's
all good.
I'm guilty.
It's all good, man. I know the feeling. I've canceled on people too, so just life gets in the way, and some days you just need an off day from flying, and the last thing you want to do is be on a podcast, so I totally get it. But I'm pumped to have you on, man.
My first podcast, so
okay.
You're taking that from me, so I'll never get that back.
I'm gonna be tough on you. Yeah. Never get this back. I'm very honored. Hopefully it's the first of many.
Yeah, who knows?
Oh, you should start a PUBG podcast. We're just talking about how much you love PUBG.
Oh, dude. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have more DMs from more dudes asking me about video games now than airplanes.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
No,
I guess time will tell. Well, cool, man. Let's go ahead and get started. First question I ask everyone when I start the podcast is, why aviation? What was the original interest for you to get into the aviation industry?
Yeah, so it goes way back. I was like your typical, typical dude then, but just like airplanes, cars, motorcycles, whatever had an engine I was pretty interested in. And I did grow up right next to LAX, so that's probably has something to do with, seeing airplanes and all that stuff.
Probably a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, that's pretty cool. And yeah, wouldn't say that I have like this crazy love for airplanes or aviation in general. I just think it's really something really fun to do. And I do think airplanes I'm still kind of an airplane geek in that sense. I just think they're just the machines in general. I think it's something really cool that as you become a pilot, it's neat to operate like pretty, expensive and high tech, high power machines, whether it's a car, motorcycles, airplanes, and I started flying out of Hawthorne, California. I took my first intro flight when I was 13 years old.
Dang.
And then when I turned 14, I started flight training every Tuesday after school.
That's crazy.
So it's just once a week. Yeah, it's kind of just like get my feet wet. And really like it was just kind of like part of my routine. I would surf and then I would go fly. And so when I turned 16, my 16th birthday, my dad drove me to the DMV. I got my driver's license. Then I drove to the airport and did my first solo.
That's wild.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy day. Like looking back at like my pictures of when I first flew an airplane by myself that day, like it was a 152. I had like no business flying. Like,
right.
A child.
Yeah, your parents. Why did you let me do that?
Yeah, I mean, this is like a long time ago. I was in like huge like Osiris shoes. Like I think I almost maybe had to sit on a pillow to see over the dash of a 152. Hilarious. Yeah, and then did that, and then I got my license on my 17th birthday, and then the rest kind of is crazy.
Yeah,
but it goes.
What did anyone in your family, were they pilots before? Or you were the first pilot in your family?
My dad, like as I was doing my flight training, he got his private as well, kind of like not alongside me, but we were going to the same deal. He got his private and then he stopped there. I don't actually even think he ever flew he ever listens to this, he might freak out. But I don't know if he ever flew by himself. I don't know if he ever flew by himself after he got his license. I'm
really?
not sure. Maybe like once or twice. Yeah. So he still has his license, but it's definitely not current. I don't think he's flown in, I don't know, 15 years.
Oh, dang. So it's kind of like a father-son thing. Like, you didn't do it together, but like maybe you were influencing him to go get it. And once you kind of,
I don't blame him. I was like 14. He's dropping me off at the airport, spending all this money. So he's probably like, that looks pretty cool. Like maybe I want to get some flight training.
It's like, screw Alex. How come I'm spending all this money on him? I want to do that too.
Yeah. I was super fortunate that they were in a place to help me out with that. Yeah. And it was awesome. So I had my pilot's license in high school. And I had my instrument rating shortly after that, which was kind of nuts. Cause this is like almost pre-cell phones. I'm like dating myself here, kind of gnarly. But like we'd go flying to Catalina and stuff after class with like my buddies or like a girl or whatever. And then it would like never fail that their parents would end up freaking out because they figured that their kid went in a little plane after class.
You went to Catalina. Normal dates in high school are like going to the movie theater. Alex is taking girls to Catalina.
Like he'd hit up like the ice cream shop or whatever. Yeah. And then we were just like buzzing around LA, which was
awesome.
So gnarly. Cause I mean, when you look back at what when you have your private, you think you're like basically Maverick, and then you get your commercial and all this stuff. And then you go to school and get an ATP and all this stuff, and you look back and you're like, man, I was so dangerous.
Yeah, it's like I knew absolutely nothing.
Literally nothing.
When I was building my time, one of my mentor that I had, he was telling me, he's like, hey man, how much time you have? And I was like, oh, like 750 hours, I'm flying a 310, Seneca, Aztecs, Turbo Commanders. And I was like, I felt like I was like the best pilot ever. And he's like, yo, be careful, because that's like the worst time. That's when you think you know everything, but you honestly absolutely know nothing. He's like, be careful, because like, that's just where the false confidence comes in, and you really think you can do everything, and you haven't really truly been humbled by the industry yet.
Yeah. Like the thing is, when like at that stage, it just depends on your age too. Like I was too young to almost know better. Yeah. It's almost like when you're 16 or 17 and like most people crash a car once or twice in their life.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, what happened? You're like, well, I'm 16 and like I bought a Mustang. You know what I mean? Like, or like, it's like, well, no, yeah. Like
I was in way over my head. Yeah.
And like, I didn't really know better. Like I went flying once when I was on just solo building my time at a 152. And, like this just shows like why 16-year-olds need to be careful when they go flying. But like, you have maneuvering speed, which says like, you can make any input to the controls, blah, 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 blah. And it won't hurt the airplane. So you're 16. So I'm like, let's like check that out, So
exactly.
Yeah. Like right now I'd be like, no, I'm good. That's great. I'm sure they'll do it. But back then I was like, all right, well, let's check this out. So I pushed forward as hard as I could in a 152. The seatbelt broke. It was so old.
Shoot.
I flew up into like a little ceiling thing, and like half he ended up in the back. Basically went straight down to the ocean, and anyways, got the whole thing all sorted out. But it's stuff like that, like only a 16-year-old will do,
Yeah.
So
had to have a change of pants probably when he came back down. You're like, yo, mom, bring me some new pants. Eh?
No, I was just like, damn, you're stupid. It's just like lessons like that, where you're like, and everyone's like, well, why'd you do that? You're like, I was 16.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even you can say this, like aviation, you learn from your mistakes, like not necessarily saying you should make that mistake, but like the how you figure out how to land in crosswinds is you kind of take a crosswind that you're not necessarily the most comfortable in, and you figure it out, and then you get more comfortable doing that way. And whether it's other stuff like you take off too heavy one time, you're like, I'm never doing that again, or you fly too close to a thunderstorm, absolutely not. So you definitely learned from your mistakes.
Yeah, a lot of it like is a maturity thing. Obviously, when you're that young, you're like making mistakes just because you weren't really thinking. And then as you get older and progress through aviation, you will make mistakes, but a lot of them you knew better.
Yeah.
Like that's the difference, is like I knew I shouldn't have been doing that. And then the other ones are like actual just real mistakes where, the weather or something like that, you were like, you say like, I'll never do that again. That was something that, it kind of snuck up on you and stuff like that, which I think are actually the more dangerous ones, when you're unaware of like that there's something around you that is dangerous.
Yeah.
So it just with time, I don't think having 10,000 hours or having 1,000 hours is really like you're better than the other person. It just depends on how you learn from your mistakes, mitigate your risks, and kind of look at the big picture of the flight from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And have like a good understanding of what's going on. And especially with today, you have no excuse with like ForeFlight and all these things, all this technology in the cockpit that we have to look up.
Right.
Like,
oh my gosh. It's crazy.
Like before, when I started flying King Airs, we were still using paper charts. I mean, when the iPad came around, it was like, this is insane.
Yeah. Revolutionary.
Yeah.
Well, now even on top of that, I fly the Latitude and I have a G5000 on there. It's like I have 20 different ways to see where this airplane is and where the weather is and how high I am or vertical distance, like everything. It's wild. It's like there's no reason to have any kind of spatial disorientation with this airplane anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you hear of these guys still flying into thunderstorms and stuff like that. And I'm like, how did that happen?
It's like you said, though, it's like they don't know better. Or I like how you put it. It's like there's really like the 10,000 hours and the 1,000-hour pilot. There's only a difference in the skill level and in the type of pilot they are if they've learned from those mistakes. If you still have a 10,000-hour pilot making the same mistakes he did at 1,000 hours and he's no better than that 1,000-hour pilot, he's not willing to learn, In some ways he might be worse because he's a cowboy and he's out there just to do his own thing. But if you can learn from those mistakes, then you'll be a good pilot.
Yeah. I mean, and another thing is too, these guys have all this time and then, they've gotten away with certain things. Mm-hmm. So then it becomes acceptable. Like, I've done it before and, it worked out and hey, that's great, man. But like, it might not work out again.
Yeah. You probably shouldn't bust minimums into Aspen.
I don't really want to be a part of it. So we don't even get close to minimums at Aspen,
no,
but
not at all.
Yeah. I mean, I have just about 8,000 hours now total time. And I still kind of approach every day the same as like, we're going flying. It's an open conversation with the crew and there's nothing that we do that I consider dangerous by any means. Yeah. And like where I'm at with aviation, I try to kind of tell everyone is like, if you're hesitating about something or you're even like, let's take a second or third look at this, let's shoot this approach for the third time. Get out of there. Yeah. You're over it.
Something's not right. Yeah.
If you're sitting down and you're crunching numbers and, I don't know. And I'm not really sure that is your training, whether you know it or not, saying you shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah. I like that. That's good.
And that's kind of how I fly the airplane and kind of run the whole deal. And if there's something that I feel is kind of gives you that weird feeling, just don't do it. It's not a big deal. And you'll actually gain a lot more respect from your passengers, your crew, because safety is the number one thing. People think that, my job is to get these people to where they're going as fast as they can. And, they got to get to these meetings stuff. And your actual job as a pilot is to get everyone to and from their destination safely.
Yeah. Alive.
Including yourself.
Exactly.
So, you're sitting in the front of the airplane. We hit something, like the pilots are going to die first.
Yeah.
So a lot of guys, there's no rush. There's no anything. There's proficiency and there's rush. There's a big difference. So being proficient and being ready to go and understanding the mission for the day, but also being safe.
Absolutely. I know we do crew briefs every single time we fly with a new captain, and I always make sure to tell them, like, obviously I'm the first officer captain, but I still throw it in. It's like, hey, like my main goal is to go home and see my wife and be at home. It's like, I do not want to be in any situation that could compromise that. So as long as we're on the both page there, then we'll have a good tour and we'll be good. But if that ever gets to be a question, it's like we're doing something else. Someone's safety's coming first for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So, just taking it easy. And I always tell everyone, I'm like, we're flying a Gulfstream. We're not flying the space shuttle. It's not a moon landing. Everything's going to be fine. We're not, it's all good. It's all going to work out. Either we get there, we hang out here, and it is what it is, but we'll do the best that we can for that day. And that's all you can do.
Yeah. That's probably a testament to your training too. Talk a little bit about the training that you had when you were coming through. You said that you obviously did it really young and you did some stupid stuff when you're young, but kind of talk about, the instructors you had and kind of your progress going through training.
Yeah. So I was pretty fortunate with my training, the way it worked out. So the instructor that I had basically up through my commercial, just up until he took me up to my commercial multi-instrument, which is basically the whole thing. But he was an older gentleman and he was in the military. He was a military instructor. he basically had to choose you as a student. You couldn't really, so he would kind of sit down and decide whether he wanted to teach you or not. So my instruction for the most part was like extremely hands-on. It was all in the airplane. It was all like stick and rudder flying. We would maybe spend, I'm not going to mention his name, but we would maybe spend like 15 minutes in the classroom, and then we'd go out and fly for 3 hours. And it was everything that you would maybe do a few times in your flight training was our day to day.
Yeah.
Like stalls were just the way that we like warmed up for our maneuvers.
Oh, dang.
And then we would do, spins. So we would do spins, and then we'd get those out of the way every day. And, then you'd get into like, your seat turn, slow flight stalls, whatever it was. So, he made all the stuff that was uncomfortable, like basically to the point where it was like so routine. Short approaches, we would look for the biggest crosswinds we could find in Southern California, and we'd fly there, and that's where we would do our pattern work for the day. Dang. So nothing was like, the winds are calm, let's go fly there. It was always like, this place looks bad, let's go up there. And that's how you're going to learn. And it was really challenging. He was really hard, but it was also, he was a great instructor. He wasn't just trying to get you to take your check ride. He wanted you to be like a good pilot.
Absolutely.
So it was cool. I had that. So it's a very like unconventional way of learning how to fly, which obviously then when you go to take your check rides and you get ready to sit down for oral, you're like, oh boy, like you haven't really sat down and studied much and throughout your career of getting your ratings. But it all worked out. So that was my flight training. It was much more stick and rudder, and it's definitely, I've noticed it today. I have no problem taking off autopilot, throttles, flight directors, everything. It's not like, oh boy, it's just like, okay, cool. It's just an airplane. So
let's fly the plane. Flies.
There was no autopilot. There was no, we had autopilot in some of the airplanes that we flew later on, and, I'd ask him, hey, can I put it? And he's like, why?
Yeah.
I don't know. He's like, I know the autopilot can fly. So we do cross countries and everything was all hand flown. So it was great. Up until I started flying professionally, I really never used an autopilot.
That's awesome.
Anything. So it was good. Yeah. The first over 1,000 hours, it was all hand flying. So I highly recommend that to a lot of people, not to rely on the automation when you don't need it in your flight training. Obviously use it to, when you're overloaded or, you're an IMC and all that stuff. But if you have the opportunity to hand fly, in your flight training is where you have the opportunity to hand fly and really hone your skills, because once you get into a bigger airplane, you're really not going to be, you're not really going to be hand flying for hours. You might hand fly the first 15 minutes and then, the last 15 minutes or whatever you choose. But
if that,
it depends.
Yeah.
It depends on the weather, but so your skills are going to diminish. So I always tell all these young guys, I'm like, this is your time to not be lazy and really learn how to fly the airplane. Yeah. And don't be afraid to maneuver it, and practice short approaches and practice everything, because you're not going to be doing soft field landings. You're not going to be doing short approaches unless you're flying a turboprop for short approaches, but stuff like that, it's going to be pretty standard.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's like you said, learn how to fly the plane and be comfortable flying the plane, because when you do have to take over from the autopilot kicks off, it's going to be the worst weather you're going to be in the soup and mad turbulence, probably closer to the thunderstorm than you want to be. And you're going to have to fly the plane, and you need to know how to fly it. So you better learn early rather than later.
Yeah. We had a flight a while back, and we were coming from, Puerto Rico to Van Nuys, and we were having some issues with the automation, and the autopilot wasn't kicking on. And I was flying with a contract SIC, and he's like, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, I'm going to hand fly it. And he's like, all the way home. I'm like, if I have to.
Yeah. It's like, it's an airplane. I know how to fly.
Eventually it ended up, we were able to sort the issue out, but for about 2 hours I hand flew past Miami and stuff like that. I was like, look, man, it's, at the end of the day, it's still an airplane, and I'm not going to divert us because of an autopilot issue. If it was malfunctioning where it's turning the airplane, or it's, it's doing something that it's like, this thing is making some, control inputs that are invalid, it just wouldn't kick on.
if it's trying to kill you, that's a different story. But if it's just like, all right,
want to turn on, then I'm like, oh, well, so, and 9 out of 10 times it's going to sort itself out.
Yeah.
And you definitely don't want to divert the airplane and cost a bunch of money if you really don't have to. So,
well, yeah. And then, you fly it back home to your base, and then you can get your home maintenance to take care of it, and you don't have to contract it out, and it just makes it better for everyone.
Yeah.
But it does suck.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. I knew deep down inside it was going to turn back on, but if you have to hand fly for 2 hours, it's not a big deal. And it's, and the passengers never knew. And, it's just, I mean, you get it all trimmed out right, and off you go.
You should have hit them with I know the autopilot can fly. Can you?
Your airplane.
Yeah. Your instructor comes out like, your turn.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna go back and hang out with the passengers. Good luck.
Yeah. So that's kind of was my flight training, and off on that weird tangent, but, I was pretty fortunate. I had a lot of fun in flight training. I actually really look forward to flight training.
No way. That's weird. That's random, because I feel like people don't look forward to flight training at all. And like you said earlier, I liked how he did spins. He made spins just a normal thing, because it's not a normal thing for a lot of students. It's a one-time lesson. It's like usually near the end of your training, it's like, oh yeah, we got to do the spin requirements. And then they're petrified of it, and they don't want to ever do it again. But it's just an airplane is very capable in a spin, at least a 172, a plane that can be spun, so it's,
but then you see on the news all these guys like VMCing and spinning and stalling and stuff. And I'm like, I don't, again, I'm not flying the airplane. I'm not the crash investigator and stuff like that. But you wonder, again, I don't want to, people are going to like freak out because, I'm passing judgment. It's not like a 737 MAX conversation, but
oh no,
you wonder what it would have been if they had more training. Cause I know it's not typical that people are going through spin training.
No, not at all. I agree.
More than 5 times throughout their training, so we probably did it, literally hundreds of times. So it was something I looked forward to.
Yeah, I think I did my spin training one time when I got my private pilot license. It was probably for like 30 minutes. We just did spins. And then when I was doing my CFI, which I never followed through with because I got my job after that, but my instructor was really old school, and he was kind of like your instructor. He's like, no, we're doing a spin every which way we can possibly get into one. Yeah. We're up there for like 2 hours just spinning the plane. I was like, all right, dude, I get it. I'm tired of these spins. But yeah, he was comfortable with it. And he always told me that I did the rest of my training in North Carolina. And he said, you can't do a full spin in a plane for more than 2 turns in North Carolina, but back in West Texas, he could do a full spin for 20 turns and stuff like that. So he was,
we'd go out over the ocean, but in all reality, like with flight training, there's 2 things. There's checking a box of what you're doing, and there's also understanding what's inside that box.
Yeah.
So just because you did the spin and you checked it, hey, we did it, I'm good. Do you really understand what just happened? Like, where were you during that whole maneuver? Were you like understanding? Because for the first like 5 spins, I was like, you're kind of like, oh, holy crap moment, So it takes time until you're like, I got this, until you're totally like seeing the gauges and you're seeing what's going on versus your instructor saying like 1 spin, 2 spin,
right.
Ailerons, rudder, throttle, all that stuff. And you're just like, what?
That's so funny. You said like, oh crap, like holy crap. Because that first sight picture is wild. Like the airplane going straight down to the ground. Like my first thought was like, oh shit, hold on to something. It's like, we're going down. But once you figure it out, you know exactly what's going on. Yeah.
And it's hot for the most part. You're in some little plane. The stall warning's going off. The prop, you can barely hear your iPad, all your stuff's on your lap. It's like, there's a lot going on. It's not like you're sitting there having a cup of coffee and the thing flips over on you. It's like, there's just a lot going on. So I think it takes some time to understand those things, and it kind of transfers over to later on down your career.
I would agree. Talking about later on your career, how did you build your time? So you said kind of like your first 1,000 hours, you did a lot of hand flying. Did you become a CFI? Did you do the cargo route? I noticed you said you flew King Air. Talk a little bit about that.
So I have like the weirdest career through aviation. Perfect. And that's why I get a lot of people asking me, how did you do what you did? And I'm like, man, I would love to tell you and give you advice, but I kind of blazed my own trail, so to speak. So my path to where I'm at now is kind of irrelevant for other people to try to follow, but there's definitely a lot more opportunities now than there ever has been.
Oh, for sure.
But, so I was flying, just renting and, basically, I actually used to clean carpets like at night and teach surf lessons. And then I would take all that money and spend it on, whatever, having fun and also flying. And so kind of like halfway through college, I got a job at Red Bull, the energy drink.
Mm-hmm.
And I started working there, and it was supposed to be a summer gig. And you know how that goes. I was 20, and then fast forward 6.5 years, I was still there and had a great position with them in action sports. And I did some marketing, and I ran what was called our special ops program. And it was everything from airplanes to surfing to moto. So it was like a great fit for me, all the stuff I grew up doing. Through like the last 2 years, I became involved with the off-road racing teams, like in all the Baja racing, like Baja 500, 1000. And they had some airplanes. So I would spend a lot of my time with my best friend, flying in Baja, chasing the truck. So we would do radio relays, and we would kind of like, it's just overall safety. You have the airplane kind of above you watching. It was in a 210. So I built a lot of time like that. I flew skydivers out of Oceanside for a little while in a PAC 750 XL, which is a crazy.
Oh, dude, that's hilarious because I just saw that plane. I posted on Instagram. I said, this is one of the ugliest planes I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. It's like if Pilatus had like a really it's like an ugly stepchild.
Yeah. It's like a Pilatus and a TBM had a really ugly baby.
Yeah. It's exactly what it looks like, but it is super fun to fly.
That's what I heard. I got so much crap for that picture.
People are like, it's cool
crazy.
It's stick and rudder. It's like got a full like center stick between your legs, just really fun. I did that for a little while. And then I spent a brief time up in the desert at a company called Chalk 2 flying UAV chase, which is a General Dynamics contract. So basically you have like your RQ-1s, MQ-1s, like all the Predator drones that are flying out up in Victorville in the valley. And when they're in civilian airspace, they have to have a human following them, because if they go like all crazy, you got to have a chase. So you'd fly in a 210 behind it and you'd chase it for 5, 6, 7 hours. So it's a great time building gig.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
How'd you even find that?
Actually my DPE was the one that like set us up with that. He's like, hey, this is a great opportunity for you guys to build time. So they're still doing it. I actually recommend all guys out in LA, if they ever want to try to get on with them. You can, you're just flying a 210. I think they have a Mooney, a 182. They're out of Apple Valley.
Okay.
And you can build time, and you're flying like maybe 10, 20, 30 feet behind a Predator drone. So it's pretty crazy.
Do you have any good stories from that of like trying to chase down a Predator drone that's gone crazy?
They will completely outperform you in all aspects.
I was about to say, how do you keep up with it?
Yeah, like if they throttle up and don't tell you, it just like, it's gone.
Game over.
Yeah. I've seen them do all kinds of crazy stuff where the thing is like oscillating and it's like rolling around, but they're, a lot of times they're testing systems.
Mm-hmm.
I was not there for this day, but I missed it by, one day, but there was a day where one of the drones landed on the other drone on the runway.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's like a $80 million,
catastrophe. That's awful. That's a bad day in the military world right there.
Yeah. Like you're in your little metal can, and the guy next to you is like, hey, I think I just landed on yours. So yeah, it is really cool. So it's a good program. I didn't spend too much time there. My buddy did. He was up there for about a year.
Okay.
And so, but it's a good deal. So I was doing that, and then I was flying this 210 out of Hawthorne, still where I grew up flight training, and that's when a company called Advanced Air. They're still there. They were kind of just getting started. They had one King Air. I want to say it was one, and then as I was in the FBO one day, this is how it always seems to work out, and the owner, and at the time I believe he was a chief pilot, he was like, yeah, we just bought a second King Air and we're going out to Wichita to pick it up. King Air 350. And I said, oh, who's going out there with you? And he goes, oh, it's just me. I go, oh, I'll go out there and I'll fly home with you if you want. He goes, yeah, that'd be cool. And he goes, it'll be on Monday morning. And I booked myself a ticket out of LAX out to, I think they're in Wichita.
Yeah.
Out to Beechcraft, and showed up in the lobby, and he was like, oh, I didn't think that you were serious. I was like, yeah, man. It's,
absolutely. The things awesome. That we do for multi-time, man.
Dude. And at the time, like, the job market was not like it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I had just over 1,000 something hours, or I forget what I had, maybe 2,000 hours, whatever it was. So yeah, we hopped in, we picked it up, and I sat in the right seat, and I flew home. He let me fly quite a bit. And at the end of it, he's like, hey man, you're hired if you want a job. I was like,
shoot,
that'd be great. And that's kind of how my 135 life started.
Yeah. So
I flew with them for about 2.5 years, and I was a captain on the King Air 350 for about a year, and I flew the Pilatus as well. They've grown. That company's grown substantially now. Like, I think they have, I don't know how many airplanes they have, but they have a bunch of King Air 350s, Pilatus. They have a couple Learjets, a Lear 75. I believe they have a Challenger so far.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that, guys. They're probably going to listen to it and tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, you're quoted. It's on record. There's no going back.
Yeah, no, they're great. They're still at Hawthorne, and actually recommended a few of my buddies, and they actually fly over there now. It's a great place to work and fly, and you fly a lot, which at an early stage of your career is a very good thing.
Yeah.
So keep moving, I guess. I got a phone call to fly a G4. I had a couple things that didn't pan out, like a Hawker 800 job and stuff like that. And then I got a phone call on Christmas Eve, I think it was. A guy said, hey, do you want to go to school on the G4? And I was like, hell yeah.
That's like the best Christmas ever.
Yeah. I was like, yeah. So he's like, I'll call you at the beginning of the year and we'll set you up. So, I flew for them for 8 months. And then I moved over to kind of where I'm at now. And, I went from an SIC to PSC in the airplane in just a few months. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I've been flying PSC, and then the current aircraft that you guys see me flying, I'm the lead captain on it.
Nice.
And it's been great.
That's awesome, man. That's
yeah.
So I have a couple of questions. One of them would be, so obviously you had a full career before you decided, hey, I'm going to go become like a professional pilot. What was kind of the mindset that you had when you were thinking through the process of quitting your career to become a pilot? Was it a tough decision for you to do, or did you know that this is what you had to do?
It was pretty crazy, man. Like, no one really quits at Red Bull because it's such an incredible place to work. So yeah, like they had a flight department, and they have Gulfstreams and stuff like that. They're all based in Europe, and you basically have to kind of be Austrian, that's where the company's based.
Okay.
To kind of get into that program. And yeah, I don't know. I'd been there for like 6.5 years, and I always knew, I'd come this far in aviation. I had like my commercial multi-instrument. I was like, I'm not just gonna. I gotta try to at least like, I always want to fly Gulfstreams as a kid. And so I was like, I got to try to like make a run at that and at least do it for a little while and see if I like it, and everybody brings up the airline conversation and all kinds of stuff. But
yeah, that was kind of the goal.
Question. And then, yeah, I know it's the natural question that everyone asks. So it was just one of those things. Like, it was time. I 6.5 years, and I had such a blast, but I was like, I'm ready to kind of pursue aviation, full time, mm-hmm. and we'll see how it goes. And it's been, what I tell everybody with aviation, it's one of those things like you have a business plan or a business model for the year. For the most part, aviation, you'll have a plan, and if you do it right, it'll change every year, but it'll be better than what you expected.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I would agree.
Yeah. It's very hard to project like your actuals of like, I will be doing this at this date. It's not a corporate structure. It's a very, very like, you're in the FBO one day and you go from a 210 to a King Air 350 and the the salary increases and changes. There's no other industry really like it unless you're working for yourself. But I mean, you can go from making $50,000 to $150,000 that same year.
Yeah, that's
which is
pretty accurate to what I'm doing right now. So I finally got out of the freight world and moved on to a corporate gig, and the money happened. I mean, it does a lot better pretty quickly. And, you think you're a starving pilot, but it's like, keep at it. It's like, it's going to change fast for you. So just keep putting in the time and putting in the effort, and it'll change. That's what I
tell everyone. I mean, when I was building my time, I mean, it's not fun. It's not like as glamorous as everyone thinks. It's a lot of work, but it does pay off. You know, you're not going to get rich being a pilot by any means. You're not going to be balling out, but it is a great life. And if you do it right, you can have a lot of fun doing it as well.
Dude, building your time sucks. Like, there's no other better way to put it, but building your time is the absolute worst. And I really wish that there was a better way, like a more defined path outside of just CFI to regional to major airline, Like, I wish there was a more defined path, because there's some really sketchy operators out there. When I flew a single pilot IFR, you saw them all the time. You saw these guys just like really doing some stupid things and not doing weight and balances and just not paying attention. And it's like, what are you doing? But there's kind of the pressure that company puts on the pilots. Like, hey, if you don't do this, then we'll have someone else do it, So it's like, and it's also the mindset, be like, everyone before me has done it this way, so I need to keep doing it this way. It's like, no, you need to get out ASAP. It's like, you need a new company, you need to move on. But it's just an unfortunate thing. And that's kind of the culture of building time. Some people get lucky, never have any issues in their whole career, but a lot of people find themselves stuck in just crappy situations with crappy bosses and crappy equipment. So it's a hot mess sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. There's some people get a really golden spoon through it, and other people really fight hard. And that's what is tough when you see some of these, I know them personally, really low time pilots that, knew this person or whatever, and they got into a Gulfstream or they're in a global and this, and I'm like, man, that's good for you. But at the same time, I know so many guys that are just grinding, and they, they're working their tails off to get these gigs, and they can't, and then you have these other people that have 800 hours that are at, G4, G5, global this initials. And I'm like, man, that's awesome. But gosh, I sometimes, I was like the traditional, worked super hard for it. So it's hard when you see some of these guys, but hey, that just shows you kind of where the industry's going, and that it is the job market is opening up. I mean, I have friends going to the majors straight out the gate. Southwest, United, all kinds of companies are hiring.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, yeah, I mean, it's good. That's just the way the world's going to work, though. You can't dwell on those situations. I tell these guys, I'm like, dude, just keep going, keep flying, get as much multi-time as you can, and don't burn any bridges. Be personable, and the more friends you make, the better off you're going to be. And that's the biggest thing, is just how you carry yourself, especially in private aviation, because a lot of it is who you are and who you know.
Without a doubt. Who will get you that interview, and then it's up to you to sell yourself. But just getting that interview is honestly the hardest part. Your resume it's hard to stand out on a pilot resume, because you don't really have any room. All they really look for is your flight time, and all they look at is that. So if you can have that one in, which is your buddy, which is a former chief pilot, whatever, but just getting that interview is honestly the most important part and the hardest part.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, and then you move on from there, and it's like, you get your interview, and everyone's got their flight time. Everyone has the credentials. Everyone's been to this and that, and I was on this flight team and I did this. That's great, man. But are you someone that you want to hang out with?
Exactly.
In the cockpit for 9 hours, for on the road, or, are you a hard worker? Are you a team player? Are you going to help the flight attendant? There's so many things that you got to look into. Is this guy, is he on time? Is he punctual? What are his mannerisms? That's really the stuff that you look for. Is just someone that will gel well with our team.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you need that. Yeah. Honestly, it's, I've flown with some people. It's like, oh my gosh, I want to kill this guy, and it's like, he might've known someone that helped him get through the process and maybe overlooked that. But the most important thing, and I won't say all of them, but 95% of all companies, when you're going to interview, they are trying to figure out who you are as a person, and try to figure out, can the captain be done with a 4-day trip or however long, a 7-day trip, and not want to kill you? It's like, if they don't want to kill you, then we made the best hire ever. If they do want to kill you, then you need to figure something out and change ASAP.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the biggest thing is work ethic. If you have the right attitude and you're ready to work and you're, just trying to get the job done, and that's the biggest thing. I kind of the guy that I fly with, I always tell him, I go, yeah, today kind of can suck or whatever. We're doing this, but I go, would you rather be digging a ditch with people that you don't like or digging a ditch with your friends?
Right.
And I go, dude, I'd rather be doing stuff that I don't like, but at least with people that I do like.
Yeah.
And we'll get it done. And it is what it is. I mean, you got to constantly remember we're spending all this time flying to Hawaii, and, there are a lot of good times, and those times you don't remember them because you weren't really talking about it or complaining about it. You're just kind of doing it.
Yeah.
And then when the pop-ups come and all this stuff, then it's, that's when
when you get the Northeast shuttle and you're like, no.
Yeah.
Teterboro to Ithaca to wherever. It's like, no.
I don't mind Teterboro, man.
I don't mind Teterboro, but I just don't want to go from Teterboro to like Boston. Like, I don't want to stay there. I want to go there and leave. Go there somewhere else.
We just stay in the city, so I don't mind Teterboro. I think I don't hate Teterboro because everyone hates Teterboro, and I frequently like to do the opposite of what everyone's doing.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I don't hate Teterboro at all either. Because Teterboro gets stuff done, man. Like New York controllers, like they're some of the best. They're just like, do this, do that, do this, do that. If you listen to them and you don't ask any stupid questions, you're gonna have a great time. But as soon as you try to show how superior you are, they're gonna put you in your place.
I don't know what's his name, but the controller coming to Teterboro, he's one of my favorites. He's like the old guy. He's always working at night, and he's just like,
I know who you're talking about.
So and so 8,000. You're like, all right, don't 8,000.
You don't waste any time.
Mess around.
Yeah, that's the best though. It's like when they know what they're doing. It's when I was flying freight, like I would love to go to the controlled, like the Bravos and the Charlies, because I feel like the Deltas, some of them didn't really they're not used to handling a lot of traffic. And as soon as it gets busy, they like kind of freak out. But when you go to the people that like the Atlantas, the Charlottes, the LAXs, like they have a flow. They know exactly what they're going to do. They have a spacing.
It's 100% business.
Yeah,
I love it though. It's just like in, out. You're clear to land. You don't even call them most of the time. They're like, we know you're here. We know you're over the final approach fix. You're clear to land 25 left. Any
exactly.
questions?
Yeah.
You're like, great, thank
don't
you.
ask us anything unless you really need us.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that's kind of, I don't know. That's kind of how I got to this point. And I don't know. It's hard to describe because it's such an unconventional kind of way to do it.
Yeah, I went very unconventional too. I've talked about it for another podcast, but I don't know if you know, but I started my CFI, really didn't want to be a CFI. Then I did aerial survey in Columbus, Ohio. Then I went to single pilot freight, and then I moved up in the corporate world. So I had a plan to go where I wanted to go in the corporate world, and I wrote it on paper, and I kind of wrote down my game plan and made sure I did it, try to do it step by step. And as you said, you can't really predict anything in aviation. So I took everything as it went. And if new and better job opportunity popped up, I jumped on it. It was all about kind of making myself the best candidate I could possibly be and get the best time. Because at some point it moves from quantity of time to quality of time. And I wanted to make sure that I could separate myself when they were looking at the resume before they gave me that interview. And that's definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah. I mean, I tell a lot of the young guys, I'm like, look, I can't tell you how many guys have called me. Oh man, I got this offer and I got this offer, but these guys fly a lot and And I'm like, dude, like the fact that you have more than one offer is amazing. Yeah. That's not normal how it used to be. And then you need to work for a company that is going to try to fly you like up for the first 2 years. You should just completely dedicate yourself to it. Yeah. And that's how you're going to really like build up your time and then set yourself up to be eligible to fly a heavy jet, or, if you want to go to the airlines and you have, international experience. I know that they do look for a lot of international experiences if you're going to, to try to get into a bigger jet, but, it's changed a lot. And I think quality of life is very important, but for your first couple of years, you got to just be like, look, I'll take whatever I can get. You got to
grind it out, man. Like I know that's like the most annoying phrase in the world, but you just have to grind it out. Like you just have to fly. You have to. And I like that you said that because that's so true.
And I was there. I was flying a lot and I remember being like, why am I doing this? I'm not having any fun. Yeah. But it does pay off. And, I get all these messages, gosh, what you're doing looks so great. And, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, first off, Instagram is a highlight reel. Yeah. Nobody ever posts like up at 1:00 in the morning and I'm, et cetera, et cetera. It's always like beautiful sunsets and airplanes and all kinds of stuff.
Exactly.
But, it wasn't, none of this stuff is for the most part handed to you. There are instances where it is, but that wasn't the case, and it's all hard work. And I believe in making your own luck. You know, there's an aspect of getting lucky, but you cannot rely on that for your future.
No,
you gotta position yourself to when that phone call comes from whoever it is. You say, yeah, you know, I do have the time, or I am flying, or, you know, if you guys need 2,500 hours, I'm at 23, but in, 2 months, I'll be there, or whatever, so you want to be in those positions, not to be like, I kind of took this cush gig and I've kind of just been sitting around. It's like, that's not going to work.
No.
So,
it's funny how you brought up Instagram and kind of just like how it's a highlight reel and how there are times when your job sucks. I think it's important for people to know that the things that you hate about aviation and about your current job, usually your next job is going to have something you hate as well. It's like every single job has something that sucks and that you hate. The only thing that really gets better in aviation is your pay. It's like even airline pilots. You'll talk to a major airline pilot who's making $400,000, $500,000 a year. I guarantee you, the first thing he says to you is, "Man, this job's like, this sucks about my job. I hate this." And then you'd be like, "Well, aren't you making $500,000?" Like, yeah, but they rescheduled me on this trip. And it's like, you're always going to have that sucky aspect to an aviation job. And that's why I like to tell people, if you're in it for the money, you're not going to be happy because you're just going to focus on the things that suck too much.
Right. I mean, if you can't do it for the money. And I tell everyone that the money will come in aviation. It's there. It's just how it just takes time. And, it's really like, you do have to you have to want to do it. Yeah. And you have to want to work hard and be flexible. When it comes to Instagram, I mean, I can't tell you how many guys that reach out and stuff. I'm like, oh, well, I see all these photos of you sitting in the cockpit or this. And they're like, oh, I don't even have my private. And they're like, what do you recommend I do? I'm like, dude,
get your private.
You gotta get your private. Yeah. And I know guys that are flying like with their buddies and twins or multis or whatever you want to call it. And they don't have their multi. Huh. And they're like all over Instagram flying these airplanes. I'm like, that's amazing. That's great. It's fun, but you can't log any of that time.
It's like, cool.
It's almost like you got to get your ratings first. And you got to, before you start going big on Instagram and showing everyone who you're riding along with, it's like, get your ratings, be legit. That's how because the FAA doesn't care how popular you are on Instagram or how much time you've sat in the right seat of this airplane. If you're not qualified to fly it means absolutely nothing.
Right.
I mean, yes, you're learning and you're absorbing, I get that, but I actually think it's even worse because when you go to get your ratings, if you do, you're going to be that guy in school. It's like, oh, well, in this airplane, it's like, dude, that's the worst.
Good luck. Yeah.
It's like, this isn't that airplane. Yeah. You gotta learn, each way. And so that's one of the biggest things at school. I try to never say like, oh, well, in this airplane, it was like that.
Yeah.
But this isn't that airplane. This is this airplane. And let's stay on topic.
When I went through my type rating, we had a jar, kind of like not a real jar, but if you talked about your old airplane or kind of like in this airplane, you had to put $1 in that jar, and by the end of the 2 weeks or the week, whatever, everyone there's like $100 in that jar.
Yeah, so there I was.
So there I was, like, oh, here we go again.
I'm like always at class. I'm like, but you landed safely, right? Like because you're here. Yeah, everything worked out. I'm like, all right, cool.
We could have stayed that 15 minutes. Thanks, bro. Appreciate it. Next.
Yeah, it's like the but did you die thing.
Oh. And then you found $20. All right, cool. Yeah. All right, next. What's the hydraulic system like?
I mean, I went from the 350 to the G4, and I remember, being like, gosh, I wonder what's going to be. Are there any similarities? I mean, they're both airplanes, and that's about how similar. King Air weighs like 15,100 pounds on the ground. And, we're at 75,000 pounds.
So you're taking more fuel than what the King Air weighed.
Yeah. Yeah. We literally, we're at 29.5, and we can put on like, with the one that I fly, it's like around like 30.1.
That's so great. We're like double like two King Airs on each side. That's crazy when you think of it visually like that, like when you can visualize how much your King Air weighs versus the fuel. It's like, I got 2 King Air 350s in this plane right now.
Yeah. And that doesn't include like all the passengers and, it's honestly, it's crazy. And obviously you get into the 550s and all that stuff, and they're, more. For an old airplane, it's honestly, it's still very impressive.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
What it can and can't do. And I mean, how relevant they've stayed, it's still fast. still flight level 450, and it goes for 10 hours. So
it's amazing. Yeah. I have the age old question for you, which you're probably really tired of answering. And I feel like
I go to the airlines.
Yeah, but I feel like still, because I'm not an airline pilot either. And I feel like still today, there's kind of like this adage, and like the only thought is you're not a real successful pilot unless you become a major airline pilot. And I was just thinking what you thought about that. Why, like, first off, why didn't you go to the airlines? And second off, what do you think about kind of that kind of mindset that you have to be an airline pilot to have a good career?
Well, I think for me, never say never, but I don't ever see myself going to the airlines. I feel like it'd be too much of a step back at this point. Mm-hmm. That being said, I mean, if United or someone offered me like a spot on like a 777, I mean,
it's a 777, right?
I mean, I'd be like, all right. I mean, yeah. But I mean, is that going to happen? Probably not.
Right.
So. The airlines never really had the draw to me. I don't really think that, and I'm about to probably piss off a bunch of airline guys. I don't really think that you fly very much. I think it takes a lot of the pilot out of you. You're given a dispatch sheet. You're given your fuel load. You're given everything. It's all loaded in the box via ACARs and da 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 da. You get in, you push back, you take off, autopilot on, off you go. You land, you walk off the airplane. But a lot of guys love that. And maybe as I get older, I don't know, maybe I might get into that. But for me, that doesn't have the appeal. It's never had the appeal. I really like talking to the passengers. I really like greeting the people. I like being, hands-on with everything. I enjoy flight planning. I enjoy flying the airplane. I enjoy all that stuff that I really, if somebody handed me a flight plan, I still to this day would be like, I'd kind of rather do it myself. That's just how I am. So for me, I don't think it would be, I wouldn't really be fun. It would just be a job. Yeah. This is something that, I have a rapport with a lot of the passengers I fly with. We're on a first name basis, even a cell phone basis with some of these, big time clients that we have. Yeah. And I enjoy that. And it has nothing to do with who they are. I just enjoy
the relationships you can create.
Yeah. Interacting with people and being able to go into the cabin. I usually go back a couple of times per flight and just check on everyone and talk with everyone. And more so than airlines right now, I'm more focused on the management side of aviation and, and being, not only the pilot, but also the manager of the aircraft and, seeing kind of what that has and learning the business side of 135 and 91 flying. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. That's kind of where I've always been with the airlines. I have nothing against it. I know it's a great life, and I'm sure there's a ton of guys that are going to say, "Oh, you're an idiot for not doing it." But right now, I know that the hiring doors are kind of starting to open, and the jobs are getting sweeter and stuff like that. But as of now, I still would love to get into like a 550, 650, 500, 600, something like that. But who knows, man? Like I said, it's here we go on the tangent of like, this is what I think I'm going to be in a year. And then it doesn't go that way. But that's kind of why I never did it. I feel like you're more of a bus driver versus someone that's really like flying the airplane.
No, that's definitely true. I mean, I definitely, that is true. And I'm sure there are some pilots that are still with the airlines that do fly more than others, but you're right. You kind of, it's more of it's done for you, and you only get paid for the time of you being in the plane to fly. There are some bad things about being a airline pilot where the commute can suck. You're doing it on your own dime. You have to pay for your hotel. And I think that's changed a little bit. They've tried to make commutes a little bit better. I'm not the best one to ask because I'm not an airline pilot, neither are you. Right. So, but yeah, I mean, when I tell people where I work and people that work at airlines, and even my dad, who's an airline pilot, when I told him the job I got, he's like, the first thing you need to do is go apply for American. And I was like, well, I mean, I'm kind of happy where I'm at right now, but it's just like, there's just this thought process that you have to be a major or a captain at American Airlines when you're 65 to have a great career. It's just like, but I think that's changing because corporate has stepped up on their pay, and it's crazy what you can make now flying a phenom at some places. So it's definitely changed. And I think that the culture in the market is changing a little bit. I don't know if we'll ever get to what airline pay is going to be, because that's also changing and getting crazy high as well. But it's two types of flying for everyone. And like we said, you can have a good career, a great career everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, the pay scales for everyone is going way up because there is a pilot shortage, and we're running out of guys that can sit in the cockpit, at least at the level that at a higher level for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, one of the biggest things I didn't mention with corporate aviation is the lifestyle. I mean, you're never going to go to some of these places that I've been in a 777. I mean, unless you fly like VP Cal or whatever that famous one is. But I mean, you know what I mean? You're never going to end up in Eleuthera or, you know, the Bahamas or all these little tiny islands. You know, and you're never going to you're only going to go to where that airline flies. Right. And everyone's, oh, well, I can airline on my days off for free. I mean, that's cool. But you know, I just think it's awesome when we get a trip to, you know, we're going Hawaii or South America or wherever we're going. And it's like, we're staying for 6, 7, 8 days and get to go explore, and we bring our surfboards and golf clubs or whatever it is. And it's like, you really get to explore the world more than just, I'm here for my min rest layover and then I'm out of here. But again, it's everyone to each their own. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but for me, like lifestyle wise, if I can go fly somewhere, catch some waves and have some fun and even bring friends and meet new people and make new friends, to me, that's pretty cool.
I agree.
And, there's definitely added value in that. It's not always about like, well, I make more money than you. I'm like, oh, that's cool. But I mean, it's not just about that. You
also look 30 years older than me and you're 5 years younger. But cool. So, you make 20 grand more. I'm still young. So we're still kind of, I'm in no hurry to really like figure out what I'm going to, you know, like I'm just going to sit in this airplane. There are a lot of guys like, I'm just going to retire here and I'm good. And I'm like, hey, that's great. But for me, it's, I actually, this whole thing in aviation, you know, flying Gulfstream and stuff happened a lot sooner than I thought it would have. Kind of with the way things were going back then, I was like, man, it's going to be a grind to get into a heavy jet because it was just so competitive. And this is years ago. And now it's, you know, I mean, everyone's looking for pilots. So all those guys building time, you guys are in a great spot if you play your cards right. Absolutely. I completely agree. The next and pretty much the last part I have for you is a little rapid fire section. And I just ask you some random aviation questions and you just come up with the quickest and the fastest answer that you can possibly think of.
All right.
You ready?
I got one for you.
Okay. What you got?
If you could fly one airplane, what would it be?
Let's see. One airplane, any airplane at all. I really love the 787. I think that'd be sweet to fly. Like if I get like a 787, like BBJ, that would be sweet.
Oh, okay. All right. That's a good one.
Yeah.
All right.
What about you?
Oh, it's a tie between the 747-8, just because that's the 747 or the B2.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
We see it flying all the time around Victorville, and when we're coming in, it's like, God, I think it's cool.
Yeah. I don't know if you'll be able to fly that one, but you never know. You know, the pilot shortage might get pretty bad one day.
I probably never won't. I never will. But hey, man.
I also don't think there will be a 787 business jet in my life either. But hey, you never know.
There already is one.
Well, I meant for me to fly. I feel like that'd be a hard job to get, but you never know. Yeah.
Gearjet out of Tokyo already has one.
Oh, really? Yeah. I'm going to start hitting them up, sending my resume. Yo, dude.
Hey, you never know, man.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, that plane, I just love the way the 787 looks. Whenever I'm flying corporate out on the major airports, the only time I really get jealous of an airline flying is when I see a 787. I'm just like, dang, that thing looks like it's fun to fly. Or just an awesome. Yeah, I've flown on one. So I said my dad flies for American. We were able to fly standby from Chicago to Shanghai, there and back, business class each way. It was so sick. Yeah, it was awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it was super cheap and it was great in business class. If you can ever figure out a way to fly business class at least once time, highly recommend it. It's amazing.
Oh yeah. I've done it. It's well worth it.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes, but when you pay for the ticket, you might think that it's not worth it. But once you get off the flight, you'd be like, dang, that was sweet.
Yeah. When you're on the airplane for like 9 hours.
Yeah.
10 hours.
16 hours going to Shanghai.
Yeah. I think we did. It was like 11 or 12 hours to Tokyo. And then we did another like 7 hours down to Jakarta.
Dang.
It was long.
That's crazy. Yeah, no, it's a long time to be in an airplane for sure.
For sure. All right. So what are these questions?
All right. I got some. Let's start with this. What's your least favorite airline to fly on?
Probably, I'm going to go with United just because we're always delayed every time I find myself on one of those things.
What's the ugliest airline livery you've ever seen?
The ugliest airline, probably the old Southwest, like the brown and
yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's bad. All right,
new ones are nice.
Yeah, I like the new blue. I grew on me a lot, honestly. It was until a couple weeks ago I was like, no, that's not bad.
The first ones just looked awful.
Yeah, I'm sure that guy got fired as soon as he said, this is what we're doing. You're gone.
Yeah.
See it.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the ugliest airplane in general you've ever seen?
Oh, the A380 by far.
Yeah, that's an ugly plane, man.
I couldn't. The first day we were there at LAX and it flew in and like to watch it, like it's a big deal. And I remember it like pulled up right in front of where we were all standing. I was just like, is that it? That's the one.
That's what we're going with. That's what you guys got.
That's the design thing. I was like, man, that is hideous. It looks like a huge like whale.
Yeah. No, that's an appropriate way to describe it.
Not an attractive whale. It's bad.
Not a cool whale.
No.
No, that's a good one. Yeah, that's probably part of the reason why it didn't last too long. Outside of the outrageous cost, and how you can take a 777 and do whatever that thing can do at like half the cost.
Yeah, they messed. The wing is too short.
Yeah,
so it's inefficient. It needs that's why the 777X is having that folding wing. So is that they need longer wings. So I don't know. You can go down that wormhole all day.
Yeah, just Lord help anyone behind an A380 and anything smaller, because that thing's gonna knock you around.
Oh yeah, we.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That's crazy. All right, so you are going to an airport, or you're going to go pick up a plane. You're at the airline there. You have a connection. What's your go-to food when you're at an airline or you're at an airport?
Oh, I usually sit at the little whatever, like Hudson stores, and just get this is so funny. No one's ever going to expect this. I get the already cracked pistachios.
All right. That's very specific.
It's the only place I get them.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then you just dude, pistachios are so good, but it's such a hassle to be cracking the thing. So.
That's hilarious.
And they always they ask you every time. They're like, sir, these are $14, right? I'm like, yeah, dude.
Yeah, you're like, I'll take two of them. Let's go.
It's outrageous. It's outrageous how expensive they're very good.
That's funny. Yeah, I was not expecting you to say that at all. But hey, There you go, man. You're probably the only reason why they keep them in stock at all the Hudson Bays. I
am like probably their number one customer. They should probably send me some right now for that plug.
Yeah, I'll send them a message. They probably already know who you are. There's a bag coming your way.
Yeah, they got me.
What is your favorite airplane you've ever flown?
Ooh, the favorite airplane I've ever flown. That's tough. I honestly, I love the Gulfstream. It's so easy and nice to fly. I'm gonna have to go with the Cessna 210 just because I flew with so many of my friends and we had so much fun on an airplane.
That's cool. So, I like that.
It was just the memory based, not performance based.
Yeah. If you had to choose between the King Air and the Pilatus, because you've flown both. I've flown the Pilatus and I love the Pilatus, so I'm very biased, but you've kind of flown the best of both. Which one would you choose?
Depends. So the King Air 350 is a great airplane. It's great for charters and it's good at what it does. If I had the money and I could buy an airplane, I would buy a Pilatus.
Yeah.
Just so I could fly it around like by myself and do fun stuff with it. As a charter bird with like all these people in bags, it's kind of a dog.
Yeah, dude, I have had that thing pretty well grossed out, taken off, and it's like, come on, let's go. Yeah. But if I could buy any airplane winning the lottery, Pilatus without a doubt. Yeah,
it's such a great little, like, not little, but it's a great airplane to have. And, but the King Air will still put up pretty good numbers even when it's fully loaded. The Pilatus does not.
Well, that's where that other engine comes in to help out a little bit, right?
That whole thing out there on the wing.
The whole second engine, But what the Pilatus can do with one engine is unbelievable. It's like the fuel efficiency that you have, and it just makes so much sense.
Yeah, they're super cool. I mean, it's a good looking airplane, it's pressurized, the whole deal. So no, they're just very different. They'd be hard to choose.
All right, here's one. Would you rather have short legs or long legs, flying wise?
Long.
Long? All right. Would you rather fly?
That was like, no pun intended.
I know, right? Would you rather fly over the beach, mountains, the country, or the ocean?
Beach and then ocean.
All right.
And then I'll tell you why long legs though.
All right. What you got?
Because a long leg or a short leg, you put in the exact same amount of work to get the airplane going. So if you set it all up, and I mean, all you do is fly to San Francisco in the G4. It takes like, 41 minutes. And then you're like, all right, we're done. So I'd rather get our money's worth, actually sit up there for, the endurance of the airplane. And, that to me is much more enjoyable. But I mean, short legs
Teach his own,
you're busy.
It's good to have a mix up of things. You don't want to have 10-hour legs every single time because obviously you'll get kind of burnt out. But yeah, 41 flight, or even some of the flights that we do, we go from reposition from Oakland to San Francisco, and it's like you don't even put the gear up. It's like, all right, go here, right base, sit down. Yeah, it's like, all right, but it's crazy
for ocean stuff. I mean, like the oceanic flights, like the Hawaii, those are my favorite flights to do by far.
Yeah,
if I could do Hawaii for all my flights, I would do it for the rest of my life. It's so much fun.
I haven't been to Hawaii yet. I need to get, or I've been as going on my own. I haven't flown there myself though.
Can your airplane make it?
No, it can't. No. It has something to do with like the oxygen bottles. I don't know. They're like 15 minutes away from making it there. But the company they have other airplanes. So like, all right, cool. We'll just
that thing called ETOPS.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole ETOPS thing. Yeah.
Yeah. That whole thing.
Yeah. Dang it. What a downer.
I know.
But yeah, there's opportunities to move up to a plane that can do it. So, it's not a big deal.
It's a fun flight. I really enjoy it.
And the overnight there would be cool too. I love Hawaii.
Can't beat it.
Yep. What was I going to say? All right. I have a couple more. What is your favorite approach you've ever flown?
Catalina with all your friends is pretty fun, especially when they're afraid of flying because they're freaking out. And I used to fly in Mexico at night in a single engine, and we would fly into San Felipe at night, and it has basically no lights. So that was
fun for a different reason.
Pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
So that was fun. Yeah.
All right. What is your least favorite airport to fly into?
My least favorite airport. I don't know if I have like an airport that I hate.
What about if you don't have an airport you hate, you could talk about like maybe like the scariest approach or like your least favorite approach or like, I don't know, just something that you don't like in aviation.
Really, the only thing I don't like is when people are late. Totally off topic. But I don't have like any like super scary.
Yeah.
I mean, I do in single engines, but nothing like, I don't know. I mean, I love flying into LAX.
It's a good one.
Right next to my house, but then I got to get right back in and repo it over to Van Nuys. So it's a little bit of a hassle.
It's an annoying flight.
But no, I really don't hate any airport per se.
Cool. That works.
Yeah.
I'll take it. I accept that answer.
Try to be positive.
Yeah, try to be positive. You have survived the podcast. So your first one is done. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I appreciate you coming on, and I think that people are going to love your story. I've had a lot of people reach out and tell me, hey, get this dude Alex on. And like I said, it's been a year in the making, and I've been some angry people like, why haven't we got him on yet? But finally got him on. I'm excited to get it out there, and I think it's going to be really cool for people to hear your story and just how you didn't do it the normal way and how you got the tail UAVs, you got to fly for Red Bull, or not technically for Red Bull, but you got to do a lot of cool things when you're flying and building your time. And I think it's important to tell people that there's other routes out there. So I think that this can just really open up other people to maybe not be a CFI and find a different way to go into the aviation world. So I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man, there's definitely there's a million different ways to fly an airplane, a bunch of different ways to build your time and try to have as much fun and, just keep doing it if you love it. Yeah. And try to learn as much as you can, and definitely, with aviation, it's great. You never know it all, and you're never the best, and that's why it's pretty fun because you're constantly chasing something that you'll never really get, but it's fun because it's the drive and like the want is always there. Yeah,
I would agree, and that's well said, perfectly said. Couldn't have said it better myself. But yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thank
no
you.
Worries. Anytime.
We'll have to get you on sometime again in another year.
For sure. Yeah, man, appreciate it. Well, fly safe, and we'll chat, and I'm sure I'll run into you soon here.
All right, man, sounds good.
All right, shoot, see you later.
And that is a wrap of episode number 66 of the Pilot podcast. I want to give a shout out to the latest Patreon supporter, Joe Bradshaw. Joe, thanks for being a $20 supporter. If you'd like a shout out, check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/pilotthepilot. Put a shout out at the end, maybe at the beginning of every single episode from here on out. If I don't, make sure you keep me accountable. But Aviation, if you enjoyed today's episode, check us out on Instagram at pilotthepilot. Leave us a review on iTunes. Email me any feedback at pilotthepilothq@gmail.com. And Aviation, I hope to see you all at Oshkosh. We're doing a meetup at Oshkosh. Make sure you stay tuned. More details to come. Aviation, Happy flying.